Hey, yeah, Ron here. I just wanted to put this ahead of the rest of the video, just a trigger warning. I am going to be discussing violence in this video, specifically hypothetical situations where someone could end up being accidentally shot. I'm also going to be discussing recent politics, that is, the events of January 6th, and Trump more broadly. If none of that is something that you want to listen to, if it's something that you might find upsetting, you have my permission to skip this one. It's more a discussion of philosophy than it is anything else. And your mental health will always come first, especially to me. When is a gun dangerous? I think that most people would agree that an unloaded gun, for example, is much less dangerous than a loaded gun, which is a fancy way of saying that most people would agree that a loaded gun is much more dangerous than an unloaded gun. Similarly, most people would agree that a gun that has been pointed at the ground is much less dangerous than a gun that is pointed at a person, regardless of whether or not that gun is loaded. So we can all agree, for the sake of argument, that a loaded gun that is pointed at a person is quite dangerous. I would hope. But let's say it's dangerous. Does that mean that it should be prohibited? Frowned upon? Should institutions that sell guns or allow performances with guns prohibit people from pointing loaded guns at other people? And if your answer to that is yes, of course it should be banned, it's dangerous. I have another question for you. What if someone really, 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 really wants to do that? What if someone wants to express themselves by loading a gun and pointing it at someone else? Don't they have the right to do that? To express that feeling? Under the First Amendment? Now that I think about it, that makes me think of another question. If I have a gun, a loaded gun, and I point that gun at someone else, and the gun goes off, is that my responsibility? Let's even give me as much of the benefit of the doubt as it is possible to do. Let's say, for example, that I'm holding a Taurus brand pistol, a Shetty brand that has been known to misfire and kill people. Let's say in this hypothetical situation that I truly did not mean to shoot someone. Let's say that my finger was not even on the trigger. Is that still my responsibility? I have talked about the mechanics of Trump's expulsion from social media, and soon the White House. I talked about how it's happened, I talked about why it's happened, and I've talked about why it's a good thing. But now that I have a chance, some room to breathe, I want to talk about it philosophically. A thing that I have not seen enough people bring up is that the violent, terrorist, fascist insurrection on January 6th was entirely predictable and preventable. We know this at least in part because people did predict it, and people at least tried to prevent it. We also know, or can infer, that Donald Trump used false claims of vote manipulation to animate his base to do violence, claims that led to similar violence when he won the election. Wait. Throughout the 2016 election cycle, Donald Trump claimed that the election would be, and that it was, rigged against him. Even after he won the election, he claimed that as many as 3 million votes had been cast illegally. Not coincidentally, this is roughly the number he lost the popular vote by. I remember this shit, I was there. Lots of people took these allegations seriously, because Donald Trump is a person that they trusted, and because they didn't trust the people that think that you're fucking your cousins. Kinda hard to fault them for that. And Trump wanted people to take these allegations seriously. He wanted people to act out. That was the point. All of that is to say that all of these claims of false voter manipulation are a dog whistle. When Trump's base hear these claims, they understand it to mean that they need to do violence to put Trump in power, to keep him in power. And we know this, in part, because this is consistently how these claims have been interpreted by Trump's base. Or to put it more simply, Trump's followers are a gun. A gun that he has been pointing at the federal government for 4 years. And then it went off. Is that his fault? I hope, truly, that the framing of that question brings attention to how absurd it is. Of course, pointing a loaded gun at someone is dangerous. And of course, if a loaded gun goes off and injures someone, the last person who handled that gun is responsible for that. Anyone who has been in a gun store knows this. But that's not even the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that these two things, these two questions, are related. You don't point a loaded gun at someone because that could injure someone. And hurting people is bad. So if anyone makes any other kind of argument about those things, whether it be gun safety or Trump, then not only are those arguments wrong, but those arguments are incoherent. You practice safety to keep people safe. And if you can't do that, if you can't be trusted to look out for people's safety, then you don't get the gun. Well, that's another script done. I've said all I mean to say about that. I am all sayed out. Regular links are still in the underbar. That's my Ko-Fi if you want to send me a couple of dollars to help me get my computer back in working order. Don't feel obligated to send me money, just to keep the show running. I'm going to keep doing this whether or not I get financial support, because it's something that's important to me. I'm big on self-expression. But anything that you could send would be very much appreciated. My Curious Cat is still in the description. I still don't have regular access to that because I need to access that through my computer, which isn't running. My Twitter is there, and if you want to see me goofing off on Twitter, I think I told someone yesterday that the reason I have over 1,000 followers is because I've spent the last 6 years harassing Drill and trying to convince everyone that Big Joel shot Tupac. Which is like 1/8 true. My plans going forward are I want to do a video about the GOP Congress and talk about some of the things that they said, that a number of them said, during the discussion part of the impeachment process. And I also want to make a video about Force the Vote, because I guess there are still people, unironically, advocating that that's something that needs to happen. I don't get it, but I have another argument I'd like to make. I was going to make it, 2 weeks ago, but then the insurrection happened. So, yeah, that's my plans going forward. And until we get there, take care of yourselves, alright?